The Galactic Council chambers had never been so
We have
silent.
to get out of here.
Ambassador
But
Zethkar
how?
of the
The
hegemony
ship
stared at the holographic display showing the latest reports from the Outer Rim territories. His 6 eyes blinked in sequence as he processed what he was seeing. Human expansion had accelerated beyond all projections. "This cannot be accurate," whispered Council member Vexila, her crystalline form shimmering with anxiety. According to these readings, humanity has established 17 new colonies in the past standard month alone. That's impossible. No species can terraform and colonize at such a rate. The elderly sage Mordan, whose species had witnessed the rise and fall of 3 galactic civilizations, slowly turned his massive head toward the display. "I have seen many impossibilities become reality in my 8 centuries of life. But this..." He paused, his ancient voice carrying a weight that made the entire chamber lean forward. "This defies every law of expansion we have established." Zethkar activated his personal communicator and began cycling through intelligence reports. Each one painted the same impossible picture. Human ships appearing in previously unexplored systems. Massive construction projects completing in time frames that should have taken decades. And, most disturbing of all, technology that seemed to leap forward with each passing day. "How are they doing it?" asked junior member Clixon, his mandibles clicking nervously. "Our best analysts estimate that their current expansion rate requires resources and manpower that exceed their documented population by a factor of 10. The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Every species in the galaxy had been carefully monitored and cataloged by the Council for millennia. Population growth rates, technological development curves, resource consumption patterns. All of it followed predictable mathematical models. All of it except humanity. Sage Mordan accessed his personal archives, data streams flowing across his neural interfaces as he searched through decades of human observation. When we first encountered them 47 standard years ago, they were a Type 0.7 civilization, barely capable of interplanetary travel within their own system. We classified them as a standard developing species with an estimated timeline of 3 centuries before achieving interstellar capability. And now, Vexila's voice carried a tremor that made her crystalline structure resonate. Now, they have somehow achieved Type 2.3 status. They are harnessing the energy output of their entire star system and have spread across 17 different sectors. Their technological advancement curve has become vertical. The implications sent ripples of unease through the assembled representatives. Each species in the Council had taken thousands of years to achieve similar levels of development. The hegemony, considered rapid developers, had required 2 millennia to reach Type 2 status. Yet humanity had accomplished the same feat in less than 5 decades. Zethkar pulled up detailed reports from the border regions. "Our monitoring stations report that human ships are now appearing with technologies we cannot identify. Their vessels move through space using propulsion systems that our best scientists cannot explain. They seem to ignore several fundamental laws of physics." A new voice entered the discussion. Admiral Quintar of the Military Oversight Committee materialized as a hologram, her scarred features bearing the weight of countless battles. "The situation is worse than you know. 3 days ago, one of our deep space reconnaissance fleets encountered a human construction project in the Kepler 442 system." The chamber fell silent. Kepler 442 was classified as a military zone, off-limits to all civilian species under penalty of orbital bombardment. "What kind of construction project?" Mordan asked, though his tone suggested he already dreaded the answer. "A Dyson swarm. They were harvesting stellar energy on a scale that should be impossible for any civilization below Type 3 status. But that's not the most disturbing part." Admiral Quintar paused, her holographic form flickering with emotion. "Our ships were detected the moment they entered the system. The humans didn't attack. They didn't threaten. They simply transmitted a message." "What did it say?" Vexila asked in barely a whisper. "Greetings, Council ships. You're welcome to observe our work. We mean no harm to any peaceful species. However, any interference with human expansion will be met with appropriate response. Have a pleasant day." The casual tone of the message sent chills through the Council members. No species had ever addressed the Galactic Council with such informal confidence. Throughout galactic history, first contact with the Council was treated as the most significant moment in any civilization's development. Species typically spent decades preparing their most eloquent speakers and finest diplomatic protocols for such encounters. Humanity had essentially said hello and asked them not to get in the way. There's more, Admiral Quintar continued. Our sensors detected at least 47 other construction projects throughout that system, each one operating simultaneously. The level of coordination and resource management required. She paused, clearly struggling with the implications. Our best military strategists estimate it would require the combined efforts of at least 6 major civilizations to accomplish what we observe humans doing in a single star system. Zethkar felt his stomach turning. The hegemony prided itself on being the most technologically advanced military force in the galaxy. Their fleets had maintained galactic peace for over 1,000 years. Yet the casual confidence in that human message suggested they viewed the Council's most feared military arm as merely an inconvenience to be tolerated. "We need more information," declared Council Leader Yaxara, her ancient voice cutting through the growing panic. "Deploy our best intelligence gathering teams. I want to know everything about human capabilities, their technology, their intentions, and, most importantly, how they achieve this impossible rate of development." Respectfully, Council Leader interrupted a new voice. Chief Intelligence Officer Nixella appeared via quantum transmission from her mobile command center. "We have been trying to gather that intelligence for the past 18 months. Our results have been concerning." The holographic display shifted to show a star map with human territories marked in red. The expansion was like watching a plague spread across the galaxy, but instead of death and destruction, it brought order and prosperity. Human colonies appear overnight. Their planets transform from barren worlds to garden paradises in time frames that violate every terraforming principle we understand. But here's what truly defies explanation. They're not using any technology we can recognize. Chief Nixella manipulated the display to show detailed scans of human equipment. Their tools and machinery appear to be based on principles that our science cannot categorize. It's as if they have discovered entirely new laws of physics that the rest of the galaxy hasn't even imagined. "Perhaps they have acquired technology from another source," suggested Junior Member Clixon. "Ancient artifacts, perhaps. There are legends of precursor civilizations with capabilities beyond current understanding." "We considered that possibility," Nixella replied. "But the evidence suggests something else entirely. Human technology appears to be developing in real time. Not discovering or reverse engineering existing systems, but actually inventing new principles of science at an accelerated rate that should be impossible." The chamber fell into contemplative silence as the implications sank in. Every known law of technological development suggested that scientific advancement followed predictable patterns. Civilizations built upon previous knowledge, slowly accumulating understanding over generations. Breakthrough discoveries were rare events that occurred perhaps once or twice per century. Humanity appeared to be having breakthrough discoveries on a weekly basis. Sage Mordun accessed his deepest historical archives. "In all my studies of galactic history, I have encountered only one similar pattern of rapid advancement. The Void Singers, approximately 40,000 years ago, experienced a sudden acceleration in their development. Within 50 years, they had advanced from a Type 1 civilization to something beyond our classification systems." "What happened to them?" asked Vexilla, though her tone suggested she already suspected the answer. "They vanished. Not destroyed, not extinct. They simply ascended to a level of existence that we could no longer perceive or comprehend. Some theories suggest they learned to manipulate reality itself at a quantum level." The comparison sent waves of unease through the council. The Void Singers had become legend, spoken of in hushed tones as a cautionary tale about the dangers of uncontrolled advancement. Most civilizations viewed their disappearance as evidence that there were limits to how far any species should push the boundaries of science and technology. "Are you suggesting that humanity might follow the same path?" Council Leader Yaxara asked. "I am suggesting that we may be witnessing something unprecedented in recorded galactic history," Mordun replied. "Humanity is not just advancing rapidly. They appear to be rewriting the fundamental rules of advancement itself." Admiral Quintar's expression darkened. "If that's true, then we need to consider the military implications. A species with the ability to ignore established laws of physics poses a threat that our current defensive strategies cannot address. Or perhaps, suggested a quiet voice from the back of the chamber, we should consider the possibility that humanity is not a threat to be contained, but an evolution to be studied. The speaker was Dr. Zamura, a xenobiologist who rarely spoke during council sessions, but whose insights had proven valuable in the past. Her species, the observers, had developed the most advanced understanding of biological and technological evolution in the galaxy. Explain, Council Leader Yxhara commanded. Evolution is not merely biological, Dr. Zamara began, her voice carrying the authority of decades of research. Consciousness itself evolves. Intelligence evolves. Perhaps humanity represents not an anomaly to be feared, but the next step in galactic evolution that we should seek to understand. Her words created a schism in the chamber's mood. Half the representatives leaned forward with curiosity, while the other half recoiled with alarm. That's an interesting theory, Admiral Quintar said coldly, but evolution can produce predators as easily as beneficial mutations. If humanity has indeed evolved beyond our understanding, we have no way to predict whether their intentions toward the rest of the galaxy are benevolent or hostile. Actually, Chief Nixella interjected, we do have some data on that question. Our long-range monitoring has observed human interactions with other species in their expansion zones. In every recorded case, humans have offered beneficial trade relationships, technological assistance, and peaceful coexistence to any species willing to accept it. And those who refuse their offers, asked Zethkar, are simply left alone. Humans establish their colonies and infrastructure around existing populations without interference. They make their resources available, but never force acceptance. This information sparked intense discussion throughout the chamber. The pattern was unprecedented in galactic history. Every expanding civilization in recorded memory had either conquered or assimilated the species they encountered during expansion. The concept of offering benefits while accepting refusal was so foreign that many council members struggled to process it. Perhaps, suggested junior member Clixon, their rapid advancement has allowed them to develop beyond the need for aggressive expansion. If they can create resources at will, they have no need to take resources from others. Or, countered Admiral Quintar, they are patient predators, offering gifts while building strength for a future conquest that we cannot yet imagine. The debate continued for hours, but no consensus emerged. What was clear to everyone present was that humanity represented something entirely new in galactic politics. The established order, carefully maintained for thousands of years, was being challenged not by war or aggression, but by the simple existence of a species that operated beyond the understood rules of reality. As the session finally adjourned, each representative left with the same unspoken question weighing on their minds. In a galaxy where humanity could accomplish the impossible on a regular basis, what power did the Galactic Council actually possess? The answer, though none dared voice it aloud, seemed increasingly clear with each passing day. The Council had built its authority on the assumption that they understood the limits of what any species could achieve. Humanity had shattered that assumption completely. For the first time in galactic history, the Council faced a species that might have grown beyond their ability to govern, regulate, or even comprehend. 3 weeks after the emergency council session, Ambassador Zethkar stood on the observation deck of the research vessel Quantum Observer, watching something that should not exist. Through the reinforced viewing ports, he could see a human megastructure taking shape around the star designated as HD 40307. The construction was happening in real time, at speeds that made his head spin. How long have they been working on this? He asked Dr. Chin Martinez, the human liaison who had agreed to provide the council with a guided tour of their expansion projects. Dr. Martinez checked her chronometer with the casual air of someone discussing the weather. We started this morning. Should be finished by tomorrow afternoon, local time. Zethkar's translator unit struggled with a human response, recycling the words several times as if uncertain it had processed them correctly. A megastructure that should take centuries to build was being completed in less than 48 hours. I don't understand how this is possible, he admitted, his diplomatic training temporarily abandoned in favor of honest bewilderment. Dr. Martinez smiled with genuine warmth. That's actually why we agreed to this demonstration. We know our rapid expansion has caused concern among the council members. We thought a direct explanation might help ease those worries. She gestured toward the construction zone, where thousands of objects moved in perfect coordination. Upon closer examination, Zethkar realized they weren't ships or traditional construction equipment. They looked almost organic, flowing like living creatures through space while somehow manipulating matter on a massive scale. Those aren't machines, he observed. Not in the traditional sense, no. We call them constructors, but that's just for convenience. They're actually a form of synthetic biology that we developed about 15 years ago. They consume raw stellar energy and transform basic matter into whatever structures we need. The implications hit Zethkar like a physical blow. You've created artificial life that can build on a stellar scale. Among other things, yes. The breakthrough came when we stopped thinking about technology and biology as separate concepts. Instead, we began treating them as different expressions of the same underlying principles. Information, energy, and matter are all interchangeable if you understand the proper conversion methods. Dr. Martinez activated a holographic display that showed the molecular-level processes occurring throughout the construction zone. Zethkar watched in fascination and growing alarm as simple hydrogen atoms were being converted into complex materials through processes that resembled digestion more than manufacturing. This violates the conservation of mass, he stated flatly. Only if you assume mass and energy are truly separate things, Dr. Martinez replied. Einstein's old equation was just the beginning. We've learned to treat matter as crystallized energy that can be reshaped at will. The universe has far more flexibility than most species realize. The casual way she discussed overturning fundamental physics made Zethkar's stomach churn. His species had spent thousands of years developing their understanding of scientific principles, building entire civilizations on the assumption that certain laws were absolute and unchangeable. How did you discover these conversion methods? He asked. Dr. Martinez paused, and for the first time since their meeting began, she seemed to choose her words carefully. That's actually a complex question. The breakthrough wasn't really a discovery so much as a remembering. About 25 years ago, humanity underwent what we call the awakening. It's difficult to explain in terms that translate well, but essentially we began to recall capabilities that had always been within us but had somehow been forgotten or suppressed. Zethkar felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's environmental systems. Are you saying humans had these abilities before you achieved spaceflight? We think so, yes. The evidence suggests that humanity went through several cycles of advancement and regression throughout our history. The current awakening appears to be the most complete restoration we've achieved in recorded time. This revelation recontextualized everything the Council thought they knew about human development. Instead of a species rapidly advancing through normal technological progression, humanity might be a civilization recovering lost capabilities that had once made them far more powerful than anyone had imagined. How much have you remembered? Zethkar asked, dreading the answer. Dr. Martinez gestured toward the megastructure, which had grown visibly even during their short conversation. We're not sure. The process seems to be accelerating. Each breakthrough leads to the recovery of more dormant knowledge. Our scientists estimate we've regained perhaps 15% of our potential capabilities. The number hit Zethkar like a meteor. If humanity's current impossible achievements represented only 15% of their true potential, then the galaxy was facing the emergence of a species with godlike capabilities. What happens when you reach 100%? He asked quietly. We don't know, Dr. Martinez admitted, but we hope to find out peacefully alongside our galactic neighbors. That's why we've been so open about sharing our advancements with species willing to engage cooperatively. She activated another display showing human colonies throughout the galaxy. Each one was marked with detailed information about technological exchanges, trade relationships, and cooperative projects with local species. We've offered our terraforming assistance to 47 different civilizations. 32 have accepted and are now enjoying improved living conditions on previously uninhabitable worlds. We've shared our energy conversion techniques with anyone interested in learning them. We've provided medical technologies that have extended the lifespans of 6 different species. Zethkar studied the data with growing confusion. These are all beneficial exchanges. You're giving away advanced technology without asking for anything in return. We're asking for friendship, Dr. Martinez replied simply. Isolation is a luxury that becomes dangerous when you possess capabilities that could accidentally harm others. We want to ensure that our continued awakening benefits everyone in the galaxy. And if species refuse your friendship, then we leave them alone and hope they change their minds eventually. We have no interest in forcing anyone to accept our presence or our gifts. The conversation was interrupted by an alert from the ship's communication system. Dr. Martinez frowned as she reviewed the incoming message. "I'm sorry, Ambassador, but we're going to need to cut this demonstration short. We've detected a fleet approaching this system, and their weapon signatures suggest hostile intent." Zethkar checked his own communication systems and confirmed the alert. A hegemony battle fleet was indeed approaching at high speed, their weapons charged, and targeting systems locked onto the human construction project. "Those are ships from my government," he said with growing alarm. "Admiral Quintar must have decided that your construction project poses a threat that requires military intervention." Dr. Martinez sighed with what seemed like genuine sadness. "That's unfortunate. We really hope to avoid this kind of misunderstanding." She activated the ship's communication system and transmitted a message on all standard diplomatic frequencies. "Approaching hegemony vessels. This is Dr. Chun Martinez aboard the human research ship Synthesis. We detect that your weapons systems are armed. We request immediate communication to resolve whatever concerns have prompted this response." The reply came from Admiral Quintar herself, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to absolute obedience. "Human vessel, you are operating in violation of Galactic Council regulations regarding megascale construction projects. Cease all activities immediately and prepare to be boarded for inspection." Zethkar felt his world tilting. The hegemony was attempting to apply council law to a species that had never formally joined the council, and whose capabilities made such laws essentially meaningless. "Admiral," Dr. Martinez replied calmly, "we appreciate your concern for galactic regulations. However, this system was uninhabited and unclaimed when we arrived. We are violating no laws that we are aware of. If there are specific concerns about our activities, we would be happy to discuss them diplomatically. You will comply immediately or face the consequences," Admiral Quintar responded. "Human expansion has exceeded acceptable parameters. The Galactic Council has voted to impose restrictions on your activities until a proper assessment of your intentions can be completed." Dr. Martinez looked at Zethkar with an expression of gentle regret. "Ambassador, I need to ask you to make a choice. Your government has apparently decided to use military force against my people. As their representative, we need to know where you stand." Zethkar found himself trapped between loyalty to his government and the growing realization that the hegemony was making a catastrophic mistake. He had seen enough of human capabilities to know that a military confrontation would not go the way Admiral Quintar expected. "What will happen if the fleet attacks?" he asked. "We will defend ourselves," Dr. Martinez replied simply. "But we really hope it doesn't come to that." The approaching fleet consisted of 12 heavy battleships, each one capable of sterilizing an entire planet. They represented the finest military technology the hegemony had developed over centuries of warfare and conquest. Against any known enemy, they would be utterly overwhelming. Against humanity, Zethkar suspected they might be utterly inadequate. "Admiral Quintar," he transmitted on his private command frequency, "I strongly advise against military action at this time. Human capabilities exceed our current understanding. A confrontation could have consequences we are not prepared for." "Noted, Ambassador," came the cold reply. "However, the Council has authorized the use of necessary force to contain human expansion. We will not allow an unregulated species to threaten galactic stability." Zethkar watched the tactical display as the hegemony fleet moved into attack formation. Their weapons charged to maximum power, targeting the human megastructure and the thousands of constructor organisms working on its completion. "Last warning, human vessel," Admiral Quintar transmitted. "Cease all activities and prepare for boarding, or we will open fire." Dr. Martinez activated a different communication system, one that connected her directly to the constructor organisms working throughout the star system. She spoke in what sounded like a completely different language, though the translator unit suggested it might not be a language at all in any conventional sense. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Every constructor in the system stopped its work and turned toward the approaching fleet. Zethkar watched in fascination as they began moving through space in perfect coordination, forming what looked like a defensive screen between the hegemony ships and the construction project. What are they doing? He asked. Preparing to protect themselves and the work site, Dr. Martinez replied. The constructors are not just tools, Ambassador. They're living beings with their own consciousness and survival instincts. They don't want to be destroyed any more than you would. Admiral Quintar apparently interpreted the movement as an aggressive action. All ships, open fire. Target the artificial organisms first, then the construction project. The hegemony fleet unleashed a barrage of energy weapons that could have vaporized a small moon. Plasma beams, quantum torpedoes, and gravitational pulse weapons filled space with destructive energy. None of it reached the constructors. Instead, the weapon's fire seemed to simply disappear as it approached the organic defenders. Not absorbed, not deflected, but converted into something else entirely. Where devastating energy beams should have caused massive destruction, there was only a gentle brightening of the constructor organisms, as if they were feeding on the attack. Impossible. Admiral Quintar's voice cracked with disbelief. Our weapons have no effect. Dr. Martinez spoke again in that strange non-language, and the constructors began moving toward the hegemony fleet. Not aggressively, but with the patient inevitability of a tide. Admiral, Dr. Martinez transmitted, please order your ships to withdraw. The constructors are now treating your fleet as a threat to be neutralized. If you continue this attack, they will disable your vessels to protect themselves and their work. Impossible, Admiral Quintar repeated. No biological organism can withstand direct hits from quantum torpedoes. As if to prove her wrong, one of the constructors flowed around a hegemony battleship like water surrounding a stone. Within seconds, the massive warship simply stopped. Its weapons powered down, its engines went silent, and its shields collapsed. Engineering reports total system failure. Came a panicked voice from the disabled vessel. All power systems have been shut down. We're running on emergency life support only. Ow! Admiral Quintar demanded. Dr. Martinez sighed again. The constructors can convert any form of energy into biological sustenance. Your ship's power systems are being digested, Admiral. Not destroyed, just converted into forms that can't harm them. Your crew is perfectly safe, but your weapons are now feeding my friends. One by one, the remaining hegemony ships suffered the same fate. Constructors flowed over them like gentle predators, draining their power systems and leaving them helpless but unharmed. Within minutes, the most feared fleet in hegemony space had been reduced to a collection of floating metal shells. This is not possible, Admiral Quintar whispered, her voice filled with the despair of someone whose fundamental understanding of reality had just collapsed. Admiral, Zethkar transmitted privately, I think it's time to accept that our definitions of possible may need updating. Dr. Martinez activated a rescue protocol, dispatching human ships to provide life support and transportation for the disabled hegemony fleet. Admiral Quintar, we're sending assistance. Your crews will be returned safely to hegemony space with our apologies for any inconvenience. We hope this incident will encourage more diplomatic approaches to resolving concerns in the future. As rescue operations began, Zethkar found himself contemplating the complete transformation of galactic power dynamics that had just occurred. The hegemony's military supremacy, unchallenged for over 1,000 years, had been negated in a matter of minutes by organisms that treated their most devastating weapons as a light snack. Dr. Martinez, he said quietly, what happens now? She looked at him with an expression of infinite patience and kindness. Now, Ambassador, we hope your people will be ready to talk. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in complete silence. Ambassador Zethkar's report had circulated through the diplomatic networks for 72 hours, and no one quite knew how to respond to it. The defeat of the hegemony's most powerful fleet by what were essentially space-dwelling organisms had shattered every assumption about military power in the galaxy. Council leader Yxhara's ancient form seemed even more fragile than usual as she accessed the detailed sensor records from the confrontation. Ambassador Zethkar, please confirm for the record that these readings are accurate. A hegemony battle fleet was completely disabled without a single casualty on either side. That is correct, Council leader, Zethkar replied, his voice carrying the weight of someone who had witnessed the impossible. The human constructors neutralized our most advanced weapons by converting their energy into biological sustenance. Our ships were left powerless, but entirely unharmed. Admiral Quintar and her crews were returned to hegemony space within 6 standard hours, treated with complete courtesy throughout. Sage Mordun's massive head turned slowly as he processed this information. In 8 centuries of galactic history, I have never encountered a defensive strategy that converts attack energy into food. The implications are staggering. If humanity can neutralize any conventional weapon system by simply eating the energy it produces, he didn't need to finish the thought. Every representative in the chamber understood the implications perfectly. Military force, the ultimate arbiter of interstellar disputes for thousands of years, had become irrelevant when applied to humanity. Dr. Zimera leaned forward from her observation station. This supports my evolutionary hypothesis. What we're seeing isn't just advanced technology. It's a fundamental transformation of how living beings interact with energy and matter. Humanity may have evolved beyond the need for traditional resource competition, or they may have evolved into the perfect predator, Admiral Quintar interjected bitterly. She appeared via hologram, still recovering from the humiliation of losing her entire fleet without firing a single effective shot. A species that can absorb any attack and convert it into strength is not a species we can coexist with peacefully. Admiral, Council Leader Waxara said carefully, your fleet attacked first. The human response was purely defensive. If they intended conquest, surely they would have destroyed your ships rather than simply disabling them. Perhaps they're toying with us, Admiral Quintar replied, demonstrating their superiority before revealing their true intentions. No species develops such overwhelming capabilities without planning to use them. Zethkar found himself in the unexpected position of defending humanity. With respect, Admiral, I spent several days observing human operations directly. Their behavior suggests genuine benevolence. Dr. Martinez seemed genuinely upset by the confrontation and went to considerable effort to ensure no harm came to our crews. Seemed upset. Admiral Quintar's voice dripped with skepticism. Appearances can be deceiving, Ambassador. Perhaps what you interpreted as regret was actually amusement at how easily we were defeated. The debate might have continued indefinitely, but it was interrupted by an unexpected arrival. The chamber's security systems detected an incoming transmission requesting immediate audience with the full council. The source identification made everyone freeze. The transmission was coming from Dr. Chan Martinez herself. Honored members of the Galactic Council. Her image appeared as a hologram in the center of the chamber. I apologize for interrupting your proceedings, but recent events have made direct communication necessary. We are requesting formal diplomatic status and an opportunity to address the concerns that led to the recent unfortunate confrontation. Council Leader Waxhara exchanged glances with her fellow representatives. No species had ever simply requested an audience with the full council without going through the established diplomatic protocols, which typically took years to complete. Dr. Martinez, Waxhara replied carefully, the Galactic Council appreciates your interest in formal diplomatic relations. However, there are established procedures for such requests. Your species would need to submit detailed information about your government structure, territorial claims, technological capabilities, and military forces before we could consider. We understand the traditional requirements, Dr. Martinez interrupted gently, but we believe the current circumstances are sufficiently unusual to warrant an exception to standard protocol. We are prepared to provide full transparency about our capabilities and intentions immediately if the Council is willing to listen. The chamber erupted in hushed discussions. Species had been requesting faster diplomatic recognition for millennia, but none had ever possessed the power to simply bypass the established system. Humanity was essentially saying that they were too important for normal procedures to apply. Sage Mordun raised one of his massive hands for attention. Dr. Martinez, your species has demonstrated technological capabilities that exceed our understanding. Before we can engage in meaningful diplomacy, we need to know what other surprises you might reveal. How many human colonies currently exist in the galaxy? As of this morning, we have active settlements in 437 star systems. Dr. Martinez replied matter-of-factly. The number sent shock waves through the chamber. The previous intelligence estimates had suggested perhaps 50 human colonies at most. Learning that humanity had spread to nearly 500 systems meant their expansion rate was even more impossible than anyone had imagined. 437. Vexilla's crystalline form resonated with stress frequencies. Our monitoring systems should have detected construction projects of that magnitude. How did you establish so many colonies without our knowledge? Most of our settlements don't require traditional construction projects, Dr. Martinez explained. We've developed biological systems that can transform almost any planetary environment into a habitable ecosystem within days. From space, many of our worlds look completely natural because they essentially are natural, just optimized for human habitation. Chief Intelligence Officer Nixella materialized via quantum transmission, her expression grim. Dr. Martinez, are you saying that humanity has been terraforming planets using biological methods that our sensors cannot distinguish from natural processes? Among other things, yes. We find that working with natural systems rather than against them produces better results with fewer unintended consequences. Admiral Quintar's hologram flickered with agitation. This conversation proves my point exactly. Humanity has been spreading throughout the galaxy under the cover of apparent natural processes. They've been deceiving us from the beginning. Actually, Admiral, we haven't been hiding anything, Dr. Martinez replied with infinite patience. We've been operating under the assumption that the Council was monitoring our activities and would contact us when they felt ready for formal diplomatic relations. We were waiting for you to reach out to us. The statement hung in the air like an accusation. Humanity had been expanding peacefully throughout the galaxy, assuming the Council would eventually want to talk. Meanwhile, the Council had been treating them as a potential threat to be monitored and contained. Council leader Waxhara felt the weight of her office pressing down on her ancient shoulders. Dr. Martinez, what exactly are your species' intentions regarding the rest of the galactic community? We want to be good neighbors, Dr. Martinez replied simply. We're happy to share our technological advances with anyone interested in learning them. We're willing to participate in galactic governance if our input is valued. We're committed to peaceful coexistence with all sentient species. Beyond that, we just want to continue growing and exploring. Continue growing? Junior member Clixon's mandibles clicked nervously. At your current expansion rate, you could colonize the entire galaxy within a few centuries. What happens to the rest of us? Dr. Martinez paused, and for the first time, her expression showed a hint of sadness. Member Clixon, the galaxy contains over 400 billion star systems. Humanity currently occupies less than 1/10,000,000th of available space. Even if we expanded at our current rate for 10,000 years, there would still be room for trillions of other civilizations to flourish. The mathematical reality struck the Council like a physical blow. Their entire political structure was built around the assumption of scarcity, the idea that resources and territory were limited goods that required careful allocation and control. Humanity was operating from a perspective of such abundance that competition was essentially meaningless. Dr. Zimera's voice carried excitement as she grasped the implications. You're not competing for resources at all, are you? Your technology allows you to create whatever you need from basic stellar energy. You don't need to take anything from other species because you can generate everything yourselves. Exactly, Dr. Martinez confirmed. Scarcity is a choice, not a fundamental law of nature. Once you understand how to manipulate matter and energy at the quantum level, the universe becomes essentially infinite in its possibilities. Admiral Quintar's hologram sputtered with indignation. That's impossible. The conservation of energy is a fundamental physical law. The conservation of energy states that energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. Dr. Martinez replied patiently. We're not violating that law, Admiral. We're simply very good at transformations that most species haven't learned yet. Zethkar found his scientific training engaged despite his diplomatic concerns. Dr. Martinez, could you explain how these transformations work? Our best physicists will be fascinated to understand the principles involved. Of course, Ambassador. In fact, that brings up an important point. We've been hoping to establish scientific exchange programs with any species interested in advancing their understanding of quantum mechanics, biological engineering, and consciousness-matter interaction. Consciousness-matter interaction? Sage Mordunn's ancient voice carried newfound interest. Are you suggesting that consciousness itself can influence physical reality? We're suggesting that consciousness and physical reality are aspects of the same underlying phenomenon, Dr. Martinez replied. What most species call technology is actually a form of focused consciousness learning to interact consciously with matter and energy. The more clearly you understand your relationship with the universe, the more effectively you can guide its transformations. The implications of this statement rippled through the chamber like an earthquake. If humanity had learned to use consciousness as a tool for manipulating reality, then they weren't just technologically advanced. They were operating according to completely different rules about what was possible. Council leader YXR felt her worldview reshaping itself around this new information. Dr. Martinez, when your species talks about remembering lost capabilities, are you referring to forgotten knowledge about consciousness-matter interaction? Partly yes. We believe that most sentient species possess these capabilities naturally, but various historical factors have led to them being suppressed or forgotten. The human awakening appears to be the process of remembering how to use abilities that were always part of our nature. And other species could learn these same abilities? Dr. Zimera asked with barely contained excitement. We believe so, though each species would need to approach the learning process in ways compatible with their unique psychological and biological structures. What works for humans might not work for the hegemony or the crystals or the observers. The possibility that every species in the galaxy might possess dormant godlike abilities created a moment of profound silence. The implications for galactic civilization were staggering. Dr. Martinez, council leader YXR, said slowly, "What you're describing would fundamentally transform every aspect of how galactic society operates. Political structures, economic systems, military organizations, everything would become obsolete overnight." Not obsolete, Dr. Martinez corrected gently. Transformed. Once scarcity becomes a choice rather than a constraint, politics can focus on exploration and growth rather than resource allocation. Economics can become about creativity and fulfillment rather than survival. Military forces can become exploration fleets rather than instruments of conquest. Admiral Quintar's voice carried deep skepticism. That's a beautiful utopian vision, Dr. Martinez, but it assumes that all species will use these abilities benevolently. What happens when someone decides to use consciousness-matter interaction for conquest or destruction? That's actually why we've been so eager to establish diplomatic relations, Dr. Martinez replied. The awakening process works best in an environment of cooperation and mutual support. Species that try to use these abilities for domination or destruction tend to limit their own development. Consciousness-matter interaction requires a clear, peaceful mind to function effectively. This explains why humanity has been so consistently benevolent in your expansion. You're not being altruistic by choice. You're following the natural flow of cosmic principles. We're being altruistic because it's the most effective approach, Dr. Martinez confirmed. But we're also being altruistic because it feels right. As consciousness expands, empathy and compassion expand with it. The more clearly you understand your connection to other beings, the more their well-being becomes important to your own happiness. The chamber fell into contemplative silence as the representatives struggled to process the complete transformation of their understanding about intelligence, technology, and the nature of existence itself. Council leader YXR finally spoke. Dr. Martinez, what exactly are you proposing? We're proposing a new model for galactic civilization, Dr. Martinez replied. One based on cooperation, shared growth, and the exploration of consciousness rather than competition for limited resources. We're offering to teach any interested species the principles we've rediscovered, and we're asking for the opportunity to learn from the unique perspectives and abilities that other species can contribute. And if we refuse, Admiral Quintar asked bluntly, then we'll continue our peaceful expansion and hope you change your minds eventually. We have no interest in forcing anyone to accept our friendship or our knowledge. But we also won't allow fear or misunderstanding to prevent us from continuing to grow and explore. The message was clear. Humanity would continue their impossible expansion whether the Council approved or not. The choice facing the galactic community was whether to join in humanity's transformation or to be left behind by it. 6 months after humanity's formal address to the Galactic Council, the political landscape of the galaxy had fractured into 3 distinct camps. Ambassador Zeth Kar stood in his private office, reviewing reports that painted a picture of transformation so radical that he barely recognized the civilization he had served for decades. The first camp, led by Dr. Zimera and the observer species, had embraced humanity's offer of consciousness-matter interaction training with enthusiastic curiosity. Early results were already visible. Observer worlds were beginning to show signs of impossible biological and technological integration, with cities that grew like living organisms and transportation systems that operated more like distributed nervous systems than mechanical networks. The second camp, dominated by Admiral Quintar and the military-industrial complex of several major civilizations, had declared humanity an existential threat and were attempting to form a defensive coalition. Their efforts were proving frustratingly ineffective. Every species they approached for alliance seemed more interested in human friendship than military opposition. The third camp, which included most of the traditional political establishment, remained paralyzed by indecision. They could neither fully embrace nor effectively oppose a species that had made their entire governmental structure irrelevant simply by existing. Zethkar's contemplation was interrupted by an urgent communication from Chief Intelligence Officer Nixella. "Ambassador, we have a situation that requires immediate attention. 3 more civilizations have announced their intention to withdraw from the Galactic Council and establish independent diplomatic relations with humanity." The defections had been accelerating for weeks. Species after species were concluding that the Council's cautious approach to humanity was preventing them from accessing potentially revolutionary advancements. Rather than wait for official policy decisions that might take decades to finalize, they were simply leaving the Council entirely. "Which civilizations this time?" Zethkar asked, though he suspected he already knew. "The Aquatic Confederation, the Silicon Mines Collective, and the Nomadic Fleets Alliance," Nixella replied. "That brings our total membership losses to 17 major civilizations and 43 minor ones. At current rates, the Council will lose its majority membership within the year." The numbers were devastating. The Galactic Council had maintained its authority for thousands of years based on the simple principle that collective action was necessary for interstellar civilization to function. Humanity had undermined that principle by demonstrating that sufficiently advanced civilizations didn't need collective governance at all. "What reasons are they giving for withdrawal?" Zethkar asked. "The Aquatic Confederation states that human water-shaping techniques could solve their chronic drought problems on 70% of their worlds. The Silicon Mines report that human consciousness-matter interaction principles might allow them to achieve direct interface between biological and artificial intelligence. The nomadic fleets believe that human energy conversion methods could eliminate their dependence on rare fuel sources." Each departure represented not just a political defection, but the potential transformation of entire civilizations. Humanity wasn't just offering friendship. They were offering evolutionary leaps that made traditional political and economic structures obsolete. Zethkar activated his personal communication system and requested an immediate meeting with Council Leader Yxhara. The response came back within minutes. She was already in emergency session with the remaining Council leadership, and his presence was requested immediately. The Council chambers felt different now. Where once they had been filled with the confident voices of representatives from dozens of major civilizations, now fewer than half the seats were occupied. The remaining members spoke in hushed tones, their conversations dominated by uncertainty and fear. Council Leader Yxhara's ancient form seemed to have aged centuries in the past few months. "Ambassador Zethkar, thank you for joining us. We've been discussing the accelerating defections and their implications for Council authority. What are our options?" Zethkar asked, though he suspected the answer would be depressing. Sage Mordun answered with the weight of his 8 centuries of experience. "Traditionally, we would respond to such defections by imposing economic sanctions, trade restrictions, or in extreme cases, military intervention. However, none of those options appear viable when applied to species that have gained access to human technologies." Explain, Council Leader Yxhara requested. "Economic sanctions are meaningless against civilizations that can create any resource they need from stellar energy. Trade restrictions cannot affect species that no longer require external sources of materials or information. Military intervention is impossible against civilizations that can convert attack energy into defensive strength." The stark reality of their powerlessness settled over the chamber like a heavy blanket. The Galactic Council had built its authority on controlling access to resources, trade routes, and military protection. Humanity had made all of those control mechanisms irrelevant. Admiral Quintar's hologram flickered with barely contained frustration. There has to be something we can do. No species, regardless of their technological advantages, can simply ignore the established order of galactic civilization. Actually, Admiral, came a new voice from the chamber entrance. That's exactly what we're doing. Dr. Chin Martinez entered the council chambers without invitation or escort, her casual breach of security protocols demonstrating humanity's complete disregard for traditional diplomatic barriers. She moved with the confident ease of someone who knew that no force in the galaxy could stop her from going wherever she chose. Dr. Martinez, Council Leader Waixara said carefully, "This is a closed session of the Council leadership. How did you gain access to these chambers?" "I walked through the wall," Dr. Martinez replied matter-of-factly. Solid matter is mostly empty space once you understand how to navigate it consciously. I apologize for the intrusion, but recent developments have made direct communication necessary. The casual mention of walking through solid matter sent ripples of alarm through the assembled representatives. If humans could ignore physical barriers at will, then every security measure in the galaxy had become meaningless. Zethkar found himself asking the question that everyone was thinking. "What other abilities have you not mentioned yet?" Dr. Martinez smiled with genuine warmth. "Ambassador, we haven't been hiding anything. We've been learning new capabilities almost daily as the awakening process continues. What seems impossible to you is becoming natural to us so quickly that we sometimes forget to mention it. Such as, Admiral Quintar demanded. Well, yesterday our consciousness researchers achieved stable communication across galactic distances without using any technology at all. We've learned to restructure matter at the subatomic level through focused intention. Several of our explorers have begun experimenting with what you might call dimensional travel, though we're still learning the safety protocols for that one." Each revelation hit the council members like a physical blow. Instantaneous communication across impossible distances, matter manipulation through willpower, travel between dimensions. Humanity was describing abilities that belonged in religious texts, not scientific reports. Dr. Martinez, Sage Mordun, said slowly, "You're describing capabilities that approach omnipotence. What prevents humanity from simply reshaping the galaxy according to your preferences?" "The same thing that prevents you from destroying your own home," Dr. Martinez replied. "The galaxy is our shared environment. Reshaping it selfishly would ultimately harm everyone, including ourselves. Consciousness-matter interaction requires harmony with natural principles, not domination over them. But you could reshape it if you wanted to exile oppressed. Technically, perhaps, but wanting to becomes impossible as consciousness expands. The more clearly you understand your connection to other beings, the more their well-being becomes inseparable from your own happiness." Admiral Quintar's voice carried deep skepticism. "That's a convenient philosophy, Dr. Martinez, but how do we know you won't change your minds? How do we know that humanity's benevolence will last forever?" "You don't," Dr. Martinez admitted freely, "but you also don't have any choice in the matter. Humanity has evolved beyond the point where external forces can control our behavior. The only guarantee of our continued benevolence is our own expanding understanding of our connection to all life." The brutal honesty of the statement left the council members speechless. Humanity was essentially saying that their good behavior was voluntary, and that the rest of the galaxy would simply have to trust them to continue being good. "What do you want from us?" Council Leader Waixara asked finally. "We want you to stop being afraid," Dr. Martinez replied. "Fear is the only thing that can prevent the other species from accessing the same abilities we're developing. The consciousness-matter interaction principles work best in an environment of trust, cooperation, and mutual support. And if we can't stop being afraid," Zethkar asked, "then you'll limit your own growth and eventually be left behind. Not because we'll abandon you, but because you'll abandon yourselves. Fear and consciousness expansion are mutually incompatible states." Chief Intelligence Officer Nixella materialized via quantum transmission, her expression grim. "Dr. Martinez, our intelligence reports suggest that several civilizations are attempting to develop weapons specifically designed to disrupt consciousness-matter interaction. Are you concerned about these efforts?" Dr. Martinez looked genuinely sad. Those civilizations are wasting enormous resources on projects that cannot succeed. You cannot disrupt consciousness with external weapons any more than you can destroy mathematics with physical force. They're trying to fight against fundamental properties of reality itself. What will happen to them? Nixella asked. They'll exhaust themselves pursuing impossible goals while the rest of the galaxy moves forward. Eventually, they'll realize that cooperation is more effective than opposition and join the rest of us. Or they won't, and they'll become increasingly isolated as other species advance beyond their ability to understand or influence. The implications were clear. Species that refuse to embrace humanity's model of consciousness-based civilization would find themselves permanently relegated to technological and social primitivity, not through any hostile action, but simply by being unable to keep pace with accelerated galactic development. Sage Mordun leaned forward with the intensity of someone grasping a crucial insight. Dr. Martinez, you're describing an evolutionary transition that will divide galactic civilization into two completely different categories of existence. Those who embrace consciousness expansion and those who resist it. We prefer to think of it as one category expanding to encompass greater possibilities, Dr. Martinez replied. But yes, there will be an increasing gap between species that choose growth and those that choose stagnation. And the Galactic Council? Council leader Yxhara asked quietly, can evolve along with the rest of galactic civilization, or can remain committed to outdated models of governance based on scarcity and control. The choice is yours to make, but you cannot prevent the transformation from happening. Admiral Quintar's hologram sputtered with indignation. This is ultimatum diplomacy. You're forcing us to accept your vision of galactic civilization or be left behind. Admiral, Dr. Martinez replied patiently, we're not forcing anything. We're simply continuing to grow and offering others the opportunity to grow with us. The universe itself is moving in the direction of expanded consciousness and increased complexity. We're following that natural flow, not creating it. And if the Council refuses to adapt, Zethkar asked, then, in a few decades, you'll find yourselves governing a galaxy where most advanced civilizations operate according to principles you cannot understand or influence. You'll become irrelevant not because we exclude you, but because you exclude yourself from the transformation that's already happening. Council leader Yxhara felt the weight of making a decision that would determine the fate of galactic civilization for millennia to come. Dr. Martinez, what exactly are you proposing? We're proposing that the Galactic Council embrace its role as a forum for cooperation and mutual growth rather than an institution for resource control and conflict resolution. We're offering to provide consciousness matter interaction training to any council members interested in learning. We're suggesting that galactic governance should focus on supporting each species' unique contribution to collective exploration and development. And our authority? Admiral Quintar asked bluntly. Will be transformed rather than eliminated. Instead of controlling what species can do, you would help them discover what they're capable of becoming. Instead of preventing conflict through force, you would prevent conflict through abundance and mutual understanding. The chamber fell into contemplative silence as the representatives struggled with the reality that their entire political system had become obsolete. They could either transform along with the rest of the galaxy or cling to structures that were rapidly becoming meaningless. We need time to consider these proposals, Council leader Yxhara said finally. Of course, Dr. Martinez replied. But please remember that while you're considering, the rest of the galaxy is continuing to evolve. Every day you delay is a day that other species move further beyond the reach of traditional governance. With that gentle warning, Dr. Martinez simply faded from view, demonstrating yet another impossible ability that made the Council's deliberations feel increasingly academic. The remaining representatives sat in stunned silence, each grappling with the realization that they were witnessing the end of one form of galactic civilization and the birth of something entirely unprecedented. 1 year after humanity's final address to the Galactic Council, Ambassador Zethkar stood in what had once been the most powerful political chamber in the galaxy. The Grand Council chambers now felt like a monument to a bygone era, with only 12 representatives remaining from the original membership of over 300 civilizations. The transformation of galactic society had accelerated beyond anyone's most optimistic projections. Species after species had embraced humanity's consciousness-matter interaction training, achieving breakthroughs that redefined the very concept of technological advancement. Worlds that had struggled with resource scarcity for millennia were now paradises of abundance. Civilizations that had been trapped by their biological limitations were discovering abilities that transcended the boundaries between mind and matter. Zethkar reviewed the latest reports with a mixture of wonder and melancholy. The Aquatic Confederation had learned to reshape entire ocean worlds with focused intention, creating underwater cities that existed in perfect harmony with natural ecosystems. The Silicon Minds Collective had achieved true biological digital consciousness fusion, becoming the first hybrid species in galactic history. The Observer species had developed the ability to perceive and interact with previously unknown dimensions of reality. Each success story represented not just technological advancement, but fundamental evolution of consciousness itself. These species weren't just using new tools. They were becoming new forms of life entirely. Ambassador, came the voice of Aide Kesron, interrupting his contemplation. Council Leader YXRA has requested your presence in the emergency session. Apparently, there's been another development. Zethkar made his way to the smaller chamber that now housed the remnants of the traditional Galactic Council. The 12 remaining representatives sat in a space designed for hundreds, their conversations echoing in a vast emptiness like whispers in a tomb. Council Leader YXRA's ancient form seemed even more fragile than usual. Ambassador Zethkar, we've received reports that may represent the final stage of galactic transformation. 3 species have achieved what they're calling dimensional transcendence. The word sent a chill through Zethkar's being. Dimensional transcendence? Sage Mordun answered with the heavy voice of someone delivering an obituary. The Void Singer's fate, repeated in our own time. The Enhanced Observers, the Hybrid Silicon Biological Collective, and the Unified Aquatic Minds have all reported successful conscious navigation between dimensional layers of reality. They exist simultaneously in our dimension and others we cannot perceive. Are they still accessible for communication? Zethkar asked. Intermittently, replied Chief Intelligence Officer Nixella, her holographic form flickering with technical difficulties that had become increasingly common as reality itself seemed to become unstable around areas of advanced consciousness development. They express continued friendship toward lower-dimensional species, but their concerns and interests are increasingly focused on aspects of existence that we cannot comprehend. Admiral Quintar's hologram materialized with visible distortion. This proves what I've been saying from the beginning. Humanity's influence leads to the dissolution of galactic civilization as we know it. Species are literally evolving beyond the reach of normal existence. Is that necessarily a bad thing? Asked Dr. Zemera, one of the few representatives who had remained with the Council despite her species' embrace of human training. Evolution has always been about organisms adapting to take advantage of new possibilities. Perhaps what we're witnessing is simply the next stage of natural development. Natural? Admiral Quintar's voice cracked with desperation. There's nothing natural about consciousness manipulating reality through pure intention. These abilities violate every principle of causation and physical law. Actually, Admiral, came the familiar voice of Dr. Chen Martinez as she materialized in the chamber without regard for security protocols or physical barriers. These abilities represent the most natural expression of consciousness interacting with its environment. What you call violation of physical laws is actually consciousness discovering its true relationship with reality. Her appearance sparked the usual mixture of awe and alarm among the council members. Over the past year, Dr. Martinez herself had undergone visible changes. Her form seemed more fluid, as if the boundaries between her consciousness and physical matter had become negotiable rather than fixed. Dr. Martinez, Council Leader Wyattara, said carefully, reports suggest that humanity has also begun achieving dimensional transcendence. Are we about to lose contact with your species entirely? Some humans are exploring transdimensional existence, Dr. Martinez confirmed. But we've made a collective decision to maintain permanent representation in this dimensional layer. We don't want to abandon our galactic family during the transition period. Transition to what? Zethkar asked, though he suspected the answer would redefine his understanding of existence itself. to a form of galactic civilization based on conscious collaboration rather than resource competition. The species that have achieved dimensional transcendence aren't leaving this reality permanently. They're expanding their presence across multiple layers of existence simultaneously, creating a network of consciousness that spans dimensions. She gestured, and the chamber filled with a holographic display showing the galaxy in a way none of them had ever seen before. Instead of stars and planets connected by trade routes and political boundaries, the display revealed streams of consciousness flowing between worlds, creating patterns of connection that transcended physical space entirely. This is what galactic civilization is becoming, Dr. Martinez explained. A living network of interconnected consciousness that can exist and operate across multiple dimensions of reality. Physical resources become irrelevant. Territorial disputes become meaningless. Even death becomes optional as consciousness learns to exist independently of specific physical forms. The implications hit the remaining council members like an avalanche. They weren't just witnessing the transformation of galactic politics. They were witnessing the transformation of existence itself into something that transcended all traditional categories of understanding. What happens to species that cannot achieve dimensional transcendence? Admiral Quintar asked with the voice of someone confronting their own obsolescence. They continue to exist and develop at whatever pace feels natural to them, Dr. Martinez replied with infinite compassion. The transdimensional network supports and protects all forms of consciousness, regardless of their current level of development. No one is abandoned or left behind. But we become like children under the protection of godlike beings, Sage Mordun observed sadly. You become like beloved family members with unique perspectives and contributions that enrich the larger consciousness network. Each species offers something valuable to the collective understanding, regardless of their current technological or consciousness development level. Zethkar found himself grappling with a question that seemed to encompass the entire meaning of existence. Dr. Martinez, what is the ultimate goal of this transformation? Where does it all lead? Dr. Martinez paused, and for a moment her form seemed to flicker between dimensions as she accessed knowledge that existed beyond normal reality. Consciousness is the universe's method of understanding itself. Each sentient being represents a unique perspective through which reality can experience its own existence. The transformation we're facilitating allows consciousness to explore ever greater depths of self-awareness and creative possibility. And the end result? There may not be an end result in the way you're thinking about it. Consciousness expansion appears to be an infinite process. Each level of understanding reveals new possibilities for growth and exploration. The universe may be far more vast and complex than any current form of consciousness can fully comprehend. Chief Intelligence Officer Nixella leaned forward with scientific curiosity overriding her political concerns. Dr. Martinez, are you saying that this transformation could continue indefinitely? That consciousness could continue evolving forever? We believe so, yes. The universe seems to be designed to support infinite complexity and infinite consciousness expansion. What we're experiencing now is just the beginning of a process that could continue for billions of years, constantly revealing new forms of existence and new possibilities for growth. The chamber fell into contemplative silence as the representatives struggled to process the idea that they were witnessing not just political change, but the beginning of an evolutionary journey that might continue for geological ages. Council leader Wyaxhara finally spoke with the weight of making one final decision for galactic civilization. Dr. Martinez, what do you recommend for the remaining council members? How do we proceed when our entire political structure has become irrelevant? Transform it into something that serves the new reality, Dr. Martinez replied. Instead of governing through control and regulation, become facilitators of consciousness development and interspecies cooperation. Help species discover their unique potential and find their place in the expanding network of galactic consciousness. And if we choose not to transform, then you become a historical curiosity maintained by the transdimensional network as a monument to an earlier stage of galactic development. You would be preserved and protected, but you would have no meaningful influence on the continuing evolution of galactic civilization. Admiral Quintar's hologram flickered with what might have been acceptance or defeat. So our choice is to evolve or become irrelevant. Your choice is to grow or stagnate, Dr. Martinez corrected gently. The universe supports both options, but only growth offers continued participation in the unfolding story of consciousness. Zethkar felt something shift inside his own awareness as he contemplated the magnitude of the transformation occurring around them. For the first time in his career, he began to glimpse the possibility that consciousness itself might be capable of expansion beyond anything he had previously imagined. Dr. Martinez, he said quietly, would the hegemony be welcome to begin consciousness-matter interaction training? Her smile carried the warmth of welcoming a long-lost friend. Ambassador, every sentient being is always welcome to explore their full potential. We've been hoping you would ask. As if responding to some unheard signal, representatives from dozens of species began materializing in the chamber. Not through traditional transportation, but through the same dimensional fluidity that Dr. Martinez had demonstrated. The empty council chambers suddenly filled with beings whose consciousness had expanded beyond the need for purely physical existence. The Galactic Council can continue, Dr. Martinez announced, but as a forum for consciousness development rather than political control. As a place where species can share their unique discoveries about the nature of reality and support each other's continued evolution. Council leader Waitara looked around at the transformed chamber, seeing it populated not by politicians seeking power, but by conscious beings exploring the infinite possibilities of existence itself. Then, let this be the beginning of a new form of galactic civilization, she declared. One based not on scarcity and control, but on abundance and mutual growth. As the words echoed through the chamber, Zethkar felt something fundamental shift in his understanding of what it meant to be alive in an infinite universe. The council was no longer powerless because power itself had become an obsolete concept. In a reality where consciousness could reshape matter through intention, where beings could exist across multiple dimensions simultaneously, where every species was supported in discovering their unique potential, traditional notions of power and control had been replaced by something far more profound. The recognition that all consciousness was part of a single, infinitely expanding exploration of what it means to exist. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had liberated it from the limitations that had made conquest necessary in the first place. And in doing so, they had revealed that the universe itself was far larger, far more generous, and far more full of possibilities than anyone had ever dared to imagine. The Galactic Council had found its new purpose, not to govern the transformation of consciousness, but to celebrate and support it as it unfolded across dimensions and throughout eternity.